The Silencing Science Tracker really shows an incredibly widespread, well-coordinated attack on science across dozens of federal agencies, the likes of which really hasn't been seen in past administrations and could have very severe long-term consequences. We've documented over 400 anti-science actions at the federal, state and local levels since the November 2016 election. 300 of those occurred at the federal level under President Trump. It's about 2 per week since he was elected. The Tracker is a joint initiative of the Sabin Center for Climate Change Law and the Climate Science Legal Defense Fund. We launched it in 2017, really in response to what we saw as the Trump administration's widespread suppression.
Great. You know what it is? It's great, it's science, important.
A lot of the anti-science action that we see and that gets talked about are the really overt examples, like changes to scientific reports or preventing scientists from speaking to the media. We've also seen, and there's been a lot of discussion about budget cuts in funding for scientific research, the sacking or reassigning of scientists.
You believe you were retaliated against because you raised concerns about hydroxychloroquine?
Yes. I believe my last-ditch effort to protect Americans from that drug was the final straw.
At the state and local level, one thing that we see a lot of is what we class as interference with education, attempts to restrict or change the way in which climate change is taught in schools.
Is there climate change? Yeah. Will it go back like this? I mean, will it change back? Probably, that's what I think.
Do you still think that climate change is a hoax?
Look, I think something's happening, something's changing, and it'll change back again. I don't think it's a hoax. I think there's probably a difference, but I don't know that it's man-made.
I think in some ways the growth that we've seen in state and local government attempts to restrict the teaching of climate change or to prevent discussion of climate change or to require what they class as balanced teaching of climate change is really a response to the youth climate movement.
Do you believe in climate change? Do you think it exists?
There is a cooling and there's a heating. The ice caps were going to melt, they were going to be gone by now, but now they're setting records.
No.
That is the exact opposite of the truth. And this time lapse of NASA satellite data clearly shows how the relentless burning of fossil fuels is melting the Arctic at a record pace.
Trump administration officials are not eager to learn what the latest science tells us about how we should be responding to climate change and other issues. I think we saw that play out most recently in President Trump's response to some of the COVID-related research.
The FDA has said hydroxychloroquine should not be used outside of a hospital setting.
No, that's not what I was told. No, there was a false study done where they gave it to very sick people, extremely sick people, people that were ready to die. It was given by obviously not friends of the administration.
We've seen very similar things in the climate space as well, where they just dismiss that scientific research as irrelevant, untrustworthy, unbelievable.
It's your government, right? It's your scientists. They work for you. It's your
That's
company.
okay. I can also give you reports where people very much dispute that. You know, you do have scientists that very much dispute it.
There's actions that directly target climate scientists by preventing them from publishing their work, changing the rules around how they conduct research. So we saw one example recently at the Department of the Interior where climate scientists were told they couldn't model the impacts of climate change after 2040, which has a really significant impact because most of the worst impacts of climate change will be felt mid-century or beyond. It really creates sort of a culture of fear within scientific communities, particularly within the federal government. We see increasingly reports of government scientists being reluctant to speak out, voluntarily changing their reports so as not to draw the ire of their supervisors. The other thing that a lot of scientists have resorted to is just leaving the government and conducting their research in academia or in private practice. We've really seen this hollowing out of government science, and we're really losing a great deal of knowledge from government agencies like the Department of the Interior and the Environmental Protection Agency. Both of those agencies have lost a large number of scientists, and those scientists have not been replaced. Reducing the body of scientific knowledge does make it easier potentially for the Trump administration to pursue some of its deregulatory actions. to roll back climate protections that were put in place in the past. It is very important that the federal government continues to support science and the communication of science in this area. And if they stop doing that, then I really do think there is the potential to just reduce the scientific literacy of the American people and therefore the drive to address climate change that comes from understanding those issues.
Is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person.